the recording.
All right, thank you. Okay, we call this meeting of the Beaufort County Operations Committee to order. First order of business, pledge allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We're allowed to sing, but still effective. Approval of the agenda. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, excuse me, I want to apologize to everybody today in advance. I only have one hearing aid working, so if you wish to engage me in dialogue, please say it loud or say it twice, okay? Mr. Chairman, does the construction update item on the agenda include a discussion with Geary?
No.
Okay. I'm gonna,
Yeah, that was requested, but I didn't.
Sorry?
That was requested, but I didn't see any value to it.
okay, I'm gonna vote no, and I want to just state it for the record on the agenda, because 10 short months ago, as chairman of the ad hoc policy committee, I was forced to cancel a agenda item, and you, Mr. Chair, were the chief advocate for canceling it because the premise was that the chairman is not authorized to unilaterally influence the agenda. And as far as I know, neither I or Mr. Smith were consulted as to whether Mr. Otting's recommendation to have Geary come in here was worth being on the agenda. Accordingly, I'm going to move that we put an item on today's agenda to discuss the future discussions from Geary regarding the issues that Mr. Otting thought reasonable to address. So I so move.
Seconded discussion. So, but basically,
Huh?
basically, you move into.
Okay, the reason I think it's appropriate to discuss Geary is that they have appeared before the clock, which is wonderful. The clock is the superintendent's committee, and the clock is not accountable to the community. So therefore, I think it's reasonable to discuss on the operations committee level whether we want to make a recommendation to the full board as to whether or not Geary would be called in to address these stories that have been published about cost overruns.
I would just point out that you had every opportunity.
I'm sorry?
So you had every opportunity to respond to the email, but you did not.
Well, we don't want to do business by email, that's what you've said many, many times.
Nonsense. All right, we've got a motion. Any more discussion?
Yeah, I made a motion, I believe we'll second it.
Yeah, I just second the motion for discussion.
Okay.
So Harry has went to the clock and talked to the clock about it.
All we're discussing now is to put it on the agenda.
Yes, and if you decide to put it on the agenda today, myself and Geary are here so they can discuss that as needed.
I'm ready to vote.
And the motion is to have that put on today's agenda?
Pardon me?
The motion is to have that put on today's agenda?
I still can't hear you.
The motion is to have it put on today's agenda?
Yes, that's correct.
In
It
favor?
requires a 2/3 vote.
Yes, I know that.
Huh?
All those in favor?
Yes.
2-1.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
In the future, when I send out an email asking for agenda items, you should respond and not wait until this forum It would make.
I found it just in
Make it-
contradiction
it would make
as to
it-
the
I'm
way I
still
was
talking,
treated
John.
when I was the chairman of the ad
I'm
hoc
still
policy
talking.
committee, that I could not control the agenda. So, now we have a motion to approve the agenda. I'll move that we approve the agenda as amended.
I'll second it.
Fair? 2-1. Public comments? There is no public. Approval of the minutes from February 12th.
We down to the minutes.
Yeah. Yes,
I'll
we'll-
have a motion, move that we approve the February 12th minutes.
second it.
Second.
Yeah, I'll say second it, yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, I did.
All in favor? And we're on, are you from here?
Yes, sir.
Here, people? I think it would be courteous to probably let you go first then, right?
I had him here to introduce him at the very least, so I think they can address the situation. So, Mr. David Wagner, I'll let you introduce yourselves and your roles. So
Okay.
We'll start with that. If you want to, yeah, come to the front, or come to the table.
Okay. It's a little awkward for me to come to today. Well, I'll do it this way. Yes, my name's David Wagner. I'm a managing director with CBRE Hearing, and my role on this program will be the program director. I've been doing K-12 work for the last 35 years, and that's what I do for the company, and I'll be helping oversee the program from a leadership perspective.
Good afternoon, I'm Rob Corbin. I too work with CBRE Hearing. I've been with the company for 29 years and my specialty is K-12. And on this program, I'll be serving in the capacity of the program manager for the bond referendum projects.
Shall I?
My thought is you might just read the draft of your notes that was given to the clock, or however you want to,
Okay.
however you want to present it. But I know you-
Okay. Okay. Well, as
or however you'd like to go.
okay, that's fine. As you said, we were at the clock meeting last week, and Rob Chomiak, our senior managing director, made some statements to the clock meeting, and I'll paraphrase and make similar statements here. Related to the Broward County School District work that we've done there, and the article that was in the press release, Island Packet, last couple of weeks ago. In November 2014, Broward County voters passed an $800 million bond referendum. A RFQ was issued shortly thereafter for PM firms. We elected not to submit at that time. However, after selecting a firm, the firm was disqualified due to a procurement irregularity. So a new RFQ was issued in 2015. We submitted a proposal at that time. It was, the school district selected two firms to split the program. It was $800 million to split the program in two different pieces. We negotiated our half of the program with the school district. elected to sign the contract. The other firm who was selected for the other half of the program selected not to execute their contract because of some contract issue they had. So they did not move forward with their half. Subsequently, a few months later, the school district came to us and said, can you take over the other half that the firm did not pursue, did not execute? And we said, yes, we'll do that. So the first part of the contract was $16.2 million. That's for 3 years. So our amendment one to do the other half was $11.3 million. Again, this is a large $800 million program. There were many schools in Broward County, 240 schools, so lots of projects. The program the contract was for 3 years with 2 options, one for 2 one-year options and then a 6-month option. So 2 one-year options and a 6-month option. When that time came, they elected to exercise option 3. That was amendment for $17.5 million. Year 4, that continued on, and a contract amendment for $20.8 million. So all told, that adds up to the $65.8 million that I think it was in the article. Again, all this was for program management services, but it was also to cover some additional services that are not typical. For example, they asked us to help staff the procurement office, so we added a couple people in their procurement office. They asked us to staff some positions they had in their communications department, so we added about 8 or 10 people in their communications department. They asked us to add commissioning to our contract, so we added about 4 or 5 commissioning experts to do that work for them. So all of this was at the request of the school district. So all of those positions are there, and we're working through that. So that's related to the budget and the fee piece. Fee piece. Related to the budget. The budget for the bond program at $800 million was set in 2014 by a consultant who did a facilities condition assessment. That set the budgets. When we got on board in 2015, we realized that some of the budgets were woefully inadequate to cover the scope of the work that was planned. For example, roofing budgets, roofing made up a large part of the program, about 20 or 25% of the program included roofing projects. And at that time, when the budgets were set, they were established at about $6 to $8 a square foot for roofing replacement. Well, roofing projects were averaging about $25 to $28 a square foot. So it was just woefully inadequate. We brought that to the attention, and several different aspects of that. We brought that attention to the Broward County School Administration, and the superintendent at that time said, we are going to continue to deliver the scope of the projects. So they purposefully added operating reserves to the bond program budgets. And so that was purposefully done to maintain the scope of the projects. And so it was very deliberate action. So indeed, yes, the budgets were extended and were increased to cover the proper scope. Scope was not increased, but the scopes that were originally planned were delivered. And that was a commitment that the superintendent and board made to the public. So they honored that commitment, and that's why the budgets were increased. Related to the schedule issues, because of the late start, not only in the initial contract that was, or initial RFP that was canceled, and then the initial contract with us that was extended to cover the other half of the program, that was about 18 months of a delay. So that was one component of a delay in getting the projects delivered. The other component of the delay was simply that the market cannot absorb all of the work that's being done in Broward County related to the schools. And again, roofing is a good example. There are only a handful of certified and approved roofers in Broward County to do all the roofing work. So they just cannot get it done in a short period of time, so that's why the work has been extended to some degree. And I think most people understand that, and that has been explained to the board and the public numerous times. In summary, Broward County Schools continues to be pleased with our work, evidence on the fact that they've amended our contract numerous times, and referencing the fact that they made a positive reference for us to Beaufort County School District for this program as well. So that was the narrative in response.
Was anything done without a signed change order by this?
No.
Everything was a change order.
Everything was approved by
Yes.
staff and
amendments.
Board of Education, yes.
So what do you need from us? Anything right now? No, okay.
Thank you. Okay, administrative regs, OS 19, school properties disposition.
Yes, sir. Members of the committee, good afternoon. The purpose for this revision to this administrative regulation is to define the requirements that must be sent to the State Board and the State Department of Education. I thought it would be helpful to have everything clear, so there's a direction whenever property is going to be transferred. And I have cited the statute in the back and our Board of Education policies.
So basically, this change is to bring us in line with state requirements.
Yes, sir. And also that we must get the right of first refusal from any charter schools in our district. So I want everything to be clear. Thank you.
Comments? Whip?
I'm just a little concerned, Ms. Kaplan, about the school business partners on page 2, paragraph C. When I see, in consideration of the contributions made to its school, it seems as though they may get some preference in using the facilities. Is that
No,
a
sir.
fair reading on my part?
No. Actually, 59, 40, 170.
Wrong AR. Wrong AR. We're on school property disposition.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And
I'm sorry. I have no question.
Help me understand, part 3. A.
3A. Principals and departments shall not dispose of property without authorization of the chief financial officer.
Right.
What was your question, sir, and I'd be glad to verify.
Exactly which properties would they dispose of, and how, and why would they have permission from the chief financial officer and not the board or the superintendent?
You may answer.
Yeah, Robert.
So when they're talking about properties, it could be anything from a computer, a desk, to actual physical properties. So anything that is asset tagged, means has value of over $5,000, is the responsibility of the finance department to track. So they track all those properties, and if it has grant funding or something else that was used to purchase it, then there's certain disposal items that have to be considered as part of that disposal. So what that's saying is before you dispose of anything, it needs to go through the chief financial officer to make sure that there's not grant issues and to clear out the tracking and make sure all that's done properly. So that is what that is in reference to.
Could we put that more in writing, because that right there is kind of throws me for a loop. I think that needs a little more explanations.
Okay. What? So I guess one of the things that make it, if you see up here, it's real property. So real property has to do with physical land or buildings. Personal property is more computers, desks, equipment.
Right.
So does that help clear? If you know that that's more equipment type disposal, and that could, we don't, that could be anywhere from something that's worth $1,000 to maybe $200,000.
Right, but
And Mr. Smith, under B, it says, any disposal will be in strict accordance with all applicable state, federal laws and regulations, and with the BCSD procurement and fixed assets accounting procedures. So all those have to be complied with before personal property can be disposed of.
right, I get that, but I like it to kind of be stated to the finest degree so that the average and ordinary person can understand it.
So are you suggesting that we define personal property?
Exactly.
It's like, Mr.
Exactly.
Odding was saying,
Yep.
like
Right,
a computer or,
And he also gave a anything under $500. Is that what you said?
No, well, I know we
Or $5,000.
we
The asset.
asset track anything that has value over $5,000.
Okay.
There's a whole system to track that, so that has to be closed out if that property's sold. because We gotta close out that tracking mechanism.
Right. And I mean, like I said, I personally would like it to be explained to when the average and ordinary person can know exactly what we're saying here. I mean, because right now it's written in terms, and I guess it probably should be, but I want, if anyone pick this up, they can understand and interpret it, and I have to ask that, and therefore it's not questionable out there.
Understand completely.
I-
So we can
I
add a definition to
appreciate-
each
yeah.
one.
Thank you, I definitely appreciate that.
Thank you, Robert. So then, Mr. Stringer, I'll get with Mr. Odding and Ms. Crosby and make revisions, and then we can discuss it at the next operations meeting.
Or just take it to the board.
Well, I don't know if Mr. Smith, if you all want
It's up
further
to-
review.
It's up to these two.
It's whatever you all would like.
I figure, I mean, you can bring the edits to the board, if you're gonna change those, and just put a little more explanation under it, and when like I said, the average or ordinary person can understand it, then, and you're gonna bring it to the board, I have no problem with that.
You don't? Okay.
I trust you to do that. I don't think it would need to come back to the committee. I mean, that's something, Mr. Dollar, I don't have a problem. Okay, yeah, yes, ma'am. All right.
A little shorter timeline that way.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So what we'll do is bring that one then to the
You need a
April
motion?
7th.
I don't think so.
recommend it?
We don't recommend
Oh,
it.
today.
All right. OS 29?
Yes, so this is one that we saw back in the fall, and at that time, there was some requests of some additional information added to it, and that has been added, and we're bringing it back. It has some additional definition of custodial services and how they're charged when custodial services are used. There was a part in here about security, which you'll find, so custodials in the beginning. You see some information about the custodial fees and HVAC fees that were added to define that. If you go to section C1D8, got some information about paying if security was needed. And then long-term user fee was added on page 7. Some minor changes on the fee on page 6 for clubs. It's kind of a repeat over and over about custodial and HVAC. And then on page 9 is just re-emphasizing about the use of inflatables and when they're allowed. I think on page 10, there was the tobacco. We added the and/or nicotine product to meet with our current nicotine guidelines. That would include Juuls and all the electronic nicotine dispensaries. And insurance for, on page 11, was added for participants coverage, which is something we've been doing forever, but we added it into the policy. And then at the very end on page 13 are where this relates to the board's
Wait a
policies.
minute, could you go back to page, so on page 11,
Yes, sir.
the insurance?
Yes, sir. So this added participants coverage, so that means if you have any kind of athletic event where they're doing athletic type activities, whoever's using that facility has to have a coverage to cover each individual participant up to $25,000. In other words, if somebody's rented a facility to play lacrosse and a lacrosse player gets hurt and sues due to health or injury, that coverage is added up to $25,000 for that individual's injury.
Also, I just have some questions about this. And you said for when you said for each individual, so if they have 40 members, then they don't have to have insurance to cover. I mean, they don't have to have insurance. They have to have insurance to cover the field in which everyone who's playing on the field, correct? Or you said they have to have insurance to cover all 40 members.
So this is a policy where they would explain to their insurance agent what the event was, how many people were, and they'd have to have coverage up to $25,000 for each individual injury that could occur. So it is something you would request from an insurance agent, and they would know how to charge you for it. But in the end, that will cover everybody playing in that sport.
I have 2 questions, Robert.
Yes, sir.
Number 1, what is the definition of a school business partner?
So that is someone that makes a donation to the school, that they're in collaboration with the school, and like we have, I know like Buford High School baseball has the American Legion. They've made donations to the school, and we consider them a big school business
So is there
partner.
documented criteria to be designated a school business partner, or is it up to the principal to say, oh yeah, they're a school business partner?
The definition would be if you've made a donation to the school.
Okay, I think that's kind of loosey-goosey, to tell you the truth. Number 2 is what board policy does this say are tied to?
The last page, on page 13, is where they've added in the policies that this ties into.
So what benefits do they get from being a partner? What's the benefits of it?
Well, it's supposed to be a donation, but what we say in here is we will waive the fees up to the amount of the donation. So in other words, if you gave a $5,000 donation and you want to use the facility and it costs $1,000 to use the facility, we'd waive that $1,000 because you'd made a $5,000 donation.
I ain't buying that.
We do track that. And,
So, in theory, I'm not saying it would happen, but in theory, an organization could make a tax-free donation and then get free usage
Exactly.
of the facility.
Only
An
up-
organization that doesn't have tax exempt that cannot deduct the donation from their tax picture? Does that put them at an equal?
We would only give them use of the field up to the amount of the donation.
That's not my point. Is
Okay.
that if they make the donation and profit from the donation by reducing their taxes, okay, is that the equivalent of some organization trying to raise money in order to afford the use of the facility?
In our eyes, we don't differentiate, just
Okay.
whatever the amount of it costs, so, I mean,
My only comment is I think that there ought to be some codified definitions of what a school business partner is that is adopted and uniformly applied throughout the school district.
and what would that what's an example of that criteria?
That's not my job. That's your job, okay? A uniform description of what a business partner is and the criteria to be classified as that, not just the subjective opinion of one of our 32 principals.
As of right now, it's just
That's
any,
okay.
well, we do have a unified criteria, it's anybody that makes a donation to the school. That's unified throughout.
So let me actually take a shot at it. So for instance, we have certain churches that run out certain buildings, correct?
Yes.
So what if the church donated $20,000 to us,
Mhm.
and we may charge them $100 or $200, and as long as they don't use up that whole $20,000 throughout that year, then we allow them to use facilities every Sunday for that.
Two things I'd add to that. The answer to that question is yes, up to the $20,000, they could use that. The other part is, please recognize that that $20,000 donation has to be approved by the board. So you have the authority to approve or reject the donation. So any donation over $5,000, the board would be the one that's kind of designating that that donation is acceptable.
But doesn't, if you donate $1,000 and get designated a school business partner, and then use $1,000 worth of rental fees, doesn't that negate the donation in the first place?
It does.
It's a revenue neutral issue with that,
That is a true statement.
huh?
That is a true statement, but we don't
Okay.
judge, $1,000 is well, I mean, we don't have place judgment on whether it's a donation or direct payment.
Okay, my opinion is that the justification for this, on the last page, is a stretch as to what board policy this ties to. You can, you could say it's derivative, but delegation of authority of the superintendent. You could say anything that it passes an AR is delegation of the authority of the superintendent. I, in my innocence, assumed that it ties to a policy about use of facilities.
There are not a lot of board policies about facilities. So are you saying that you do not want us to see us have an AR about the use of facilities? Should we remove this AR and not have a regulation on how facilities are used? Is that, I don't get it.
I don't think that's what he's saying.
What is the,
I think what he's saying is that the question he just asked about number 2 is that the partnership should possibly non-void, because if you're gonna donate money, don't give me a pair of shoes and tell me, hey, I'm giving you these pair of shoes because I want you, because you don't have no pair of decent shoes. But hey, every time you play basketball for me, I want you to wear the pair of shoes that you gave me. No, basically, you gave me a pair of shoes to wear when we play basketball, so I can have a decent pair of shoes. That's what you gave me the shoes for. You didn't just give it to me to walk around in a half. You gave it to me so that when we play, we can have a pair of shoes. So don't give it to me for one thing, but then tell me require me to use it for another thing. A donation is a contribution, a good riddance thing that's been given. You should, when you give someone something from your heart, you should expect it to be back. When you expecting services and not paying for it, those are two. That's an apple. You talking about apples and oranges.
so you're saying it's a recommendation of the committee to move the school business partner verbiage in here as that they get no preferential treatment for donations.
Absolutely.
Is that, I mean, do we need to take that to the board, to give the board to give a recommendation, or are y'all making that?
I mean, because it's,
Mr. Smith is talking, we're not making any recommendations.
Well, what do I do with this is what I want.
Just listening.
well, if I need to make a motion, then I know if I need to make a motion, then I will, David, because basically what that's saying is that, you know, we have to be careful because you can have people, parents who have money and who or all different organizations, that can be their way of getting things done by making donations. I mean, so we have to be careful too on how we accept these. If the donations were going around the district fluently and not towards one school, and the plan was at the personal level, that's different. But yeah, the board accepts the donation, the donation, and where does these donations go at exactly? Do we know that? Can you tell me for all the donations that we accept? Do you have a listing of where all this money is going? That the donations that we accept?
Yes, every donation over $1,000 is to be approved by the CFO. Every donation over $5,000 to be approved by the board.
And no, my question is, after it leaves the CFO, where does it go?
Well, the donator has to fill out the form to say what the purpose is and where it's for. So any donation over $1,000 is tracked, yes. Any donation over $5,000 is tracked, yes. I do not have that data with me today. If you would like me to find that out, I can get that for you. But yes, it is tracked.
Any donation that comes into the school district, it goes in general fund. Most of it that goes in general fund. Now, as far as capital,
Well, a lot of donations are actual material fees.
Yeah, material, yeah.
And when the donations come, when they get on the form, they tell you exactly like what
Yeah.
they're for. Like if
Right.
it's for the baseball sign,
Right.
so it doesn't necessarily go in the general fund, it goes to that area where if it goes to the concession stand, if it goes to buying football equipment, it goes to those things that it specifically says
Designated.
designated on the form.
But not-
So when the donations come in, they say what it's being
Right.
used for. Like if it's a
Yeah.
piano, it goes to the music classroom, where they say,
now, when Papa donated $20,000 a year,
that's different.
That is-
that's different.
That's
what I was
different.
talking about. But it's not up to the principal. It's up to Robert and Tanya Crosby as far as what is charged, what the policy says. You have to have insurance. You have to pay for security. So there's no. I don't think anyone is getting any special favors because of how much they donated. Papa doesn't get a thing.
But he probably didn't ask.
Huh?
If he doesn't ask it, then he won't get it. So the moms don't get fed.
If Mr. Parker wanted to use one of our facilities, we would allow those fees to be waived based on the amount of his donation, yes.
Dr. Bonds.
So it just seems like a couple things that were said may not be accurate. One thing is, a for-profit versus a not-for-profit organization can donate, and there's still definitely tax benefits, whether you're for-profit or not-for-profit, and they may be different, I don't know, I'm not a tax accountant. But it was kind of implied here that only the for-profit, the non-for-profit get the tax advantage. The other thing to say that when somebody gives a $20,000 donation, and then they got $20,000 worth of whatever you want to say, rent, security, air conditioning, whatever it is, lights, that may not really be revenue neutral. Yes, it's the same number, but maybe our $20,000 to use the facility or whatever, it's really our cost is only $10,000. I mean, I don't know that, but even though it's the same number, we may not really be comparing the same thing.
So I guess, now, we don't vote on an AR anyway, right? Okay, so my bottom line is this. If I donate $1,000 to the school district and then use $1,000 in rental, I didn't make a donation, I just paid my rental fee in advance.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's apples and oranges what we're arguing in terms of, you know, the intent of the donations. I don't think people give the donations with the intent that they're gonna get, you know, what do you call it, earth. same kind of replica in terms of rental. Or they would just rent it. Know what I mean? I mean, it's incidentally, someone might wanna have use of it. And I agree with the spirit of this, that if someone is giving 20,000 donation and they decide they wanna have an event that's worth $1,000 or $2,000, and that probably be the situation, and they appeal for a contract, and we say that fee is waived due to what you have extended as a partner. I can see nothing really wrong with that. That'll encourage more partnerships. I think we need more partnerships in terms of public, private sector, and how we utilize it, not just facilities, but for other things also.
And I'd just point out that when you get a donation of $5,000, you have $5,000. If you have the facilities sitting empty, you have zero. So, you know, you've got this facility that's sitting there. You got $5,000, so it's not a break even. You weren't going to use that for anything anyhow.
Well,
John, first thing.
Well, since we don't vote on the AR anyway, it's just my hope that when the policy committee begins its work, that they include in their agenda a policy around use of facilities and help the administration get away from using these umbrella policies of like delegation of authority to the superintendent. I mean, that's just an umbrella on which you can almost throw almost anything. So that's just my comment, so I don't know.
and also, renting of a facility, let's say for instance, because I have a lot of calls about this. So if I had a little league team and we wanted to practice on the football field, according to this policy, well, what would I be required to do?
Well, you would have to contact, if it's like one time or at one location? At one location?
At one location.
So you'd have to contact the school to see if it's available. And the school would, if it was available, then you'd go through the school bookkeeper and fill out a facilities use request. And with that, you'd have to provide insurance for like a little league team. You'd have
How much? Insurance of how much?
We have that in the agreement. I think it's $1 million aggregate is what I think it is. And then $25,000 per participant is what the insurance is.
Right. Now, and here's what parents, and here's the problem that I'm getting called. Some of these little league teams can barely afford to even have a team. So you tell them that you want them to have $1 million in insurance. I'm not sure how much insurance costs. And they may need uses of the field, and now you want them to have this insurance for the field. I mean, to have use of the field, and then also you ask them to have an additional $25,000 for it if a player gets hurt. I think that may be something that we may need to look into, because I believe the district has insurance and people do pay taxes. So we may want to make that more friendly, because there are local teams and there are people who have developed different teams and stuff, and they practice, and also we need to make sure that is a standard operation throughout the district. I heard you say that they can go to the school and contact the principal and the bookkeeper, but at some point in time, do central office know that these buildings are being used and when they're being used?
Yes, in this policy, they're supposed to put all that paperwork in what we have a program called Facilities Direct.
Right.
And we do that so that anybody else will know whether that field is taken.
Right.
So if your little league team is playing at River Ridge Academy and another little league team wants to come in and do the same thing, they can look it up and see that, yes, we've already rented it out for these dates, where they talk to somebody else. The fees are all the same throughout, the insurance requirements are all the same throughout. And all I would say is just recognize that the insurance is there to protect the district. That is what it's there for.
Right.
If as a board, you want to lower those requirements so that the district has less protection, that's up to the board.
Hold on, let me correct it. I'm not saying have less protection for the board. Now, let's
For the
not twist,
district.
right, for the district, now, let's not twist my words. What I'm saying that let's understand that people that actually use these facilities are taxpayers, right? Correct?
Yes, well,
Okay, right.
may or may not be.
Right,
Let's assume
but
they-
the bottom line is that the money that comes to this district, 9 times out of 10, it comes from taxpayers. Now, and if they're already taxpayers, and they want to use facilities because there's nothing in Beaufort County for the teens to do in the county, and then they're trying to have little leagues and little leagues team stuff to these parents can barely afford. Then and the district already rightfully has insurance on the property that taxpayers that we already paid. Then I'm saying that not let them get it for scot free. I'm just saying maybe we can edit it with certain insurances for certain things, as in renting facilities to have little league games. I mean, what's the difference between having a little league game and having a high school varsity football game?
Well, my take on,
Well, because the Little League game is a non-school activity. It's not related to school functions or school activities.
But it's still maybe the same amount of people, and it's still a game,
You know,
it's still a game,
an
it's still a game.
insurance company, they're gonna look at, they're only gonna insure, you know, what the district's insurance is only gonna cover school activities. It's not gonna cover something that's not a school activity.
Okay, well, I'm glad you said that. So Robert, let me ask you this. So what happened if at 2 o'clock in the morning, someone goes running around our track and they sprain their ankle and they get hurt? And they sue the insurance company?
if we allowed them on the track and didn't have sign and posting, we may be liable for a lawsuit. I mean, well, that's a windy, let me just,
I mean,
that's why if you'll notice, a lot of our tracks, and most of them have a posted that please check in with the front office before use. So that's our protection there, is say, look, the sign said it's closed, or you need to check in with the front office before you use it. You did not follow the directions. That would be our only.
Well, I'm gonna move on and I'm gonna just say this. I think we need to have some alternate, because I've had several people in the community that said the insurance is too high, and that sometimes it's hard to get that amount when they're trying to have it. Some people may not like it. Some people it might not affect the community, but it affects my constituents, and my constituents ask me about it, and I will continue to pound this situation until we come to some type of resolve. I know some people may came and said this meeting is supposed to last a certain time. I can give a care, because at the end of the day, I'm doing what the constituents is asking me to do, and this comes up a lot. So thank you. But I will in the future, when you bring this forward the board, if it comes there, I will ask you about that again, because my constituents continuously asking me that, and in the neighborhood, Beaufort County does not have enough for teens to do. That's the bottom line, and it's not this board's fault, but that's the reality of it.
Okay, so the bottom line is, are you gonna add in here a short definition of what a partner is? You already
Yes,
have
I
it.
can add a definition on our partner.
Right, you are, okay, then I think that would help,
Okay,
and then take before the board, and Mr. Smith can discuss before the board. You get the full board's opinion.
okay. Now, I had as part of this, the fees. I would say we table that for another day. I think we have a lot of pressing items, and I can see that will cause a long discussion, and I would suggest we table that for some other time.
It's up to you.
Which fees?
On facility use, fees for, you have the policy, and then you have the fees for the use.
Well, these right here go hand in hand, so why would you do one without the other? So now, let's move forward.
It sounds like needs to be a way more in-depth discussion, so I would suggest pulling this and set up a time with the board to talk about this in detail, because there's a lot of issues being brought up that I don't know directly how to address, so I would say put it in a workshop or something like that can address this more, spend more time on this. Because I have to say, I don't know the direction. I'm hearing a lot of things and from individuals, and I don't know the direction to take this. I would suggest putting this all on hold and going to a workshop.
know what's more appropriate.
I think we should move forward with it. I can understand it. I think we should move forward.
What do you mean, move forward, you mean discuss it?
Yeah, discuss it. I think we should discuss it.
Okay.
Mr. Down? Do you want to discuss this or not? The fees, the actual fees?
No.
Okay. I don't either.
All right, well, that's two y'all there.
So I agree, I think it needs to be a full board discussion.
Yeah.
Um,
And I don't think it sounds like a workshop type topic. So
That's up to the agenda committee.
I will put that to the side.
Okay. The summer 2021 project list.
Yes. So, if you see the, you should have in a spreadsheet format, this was taken, for the most part, taken out of, numbered, where's number one? Kind of stapled in the right corner that kind of throws you off a little bit. And I probably need to get you larger copies. I see you looking at that, Mr. Campbell. I'll sort this out. I will get to, well, it's available online, but I can also get to Ms. Cushenberry 11 by 17 to enlarge this. So what you have here is the 2022 column comes pretty closely out of the 10-year plan, and you will see that the total project list is at $38 million if you go to the bottom. I have made a staff recommendation is the next column, are just some of my suggestions that bring out the asset preservation, safety and security, and some of the items, HVAC, roofs, things of that nature, and place that as a kind of recommended next step. And then with some notes over to the far right that may explain where some of those are in rankings, like I ranked all the HVAC projects by priority. I ranked all the roofing projects in priority. So I kind of am giving this to you today to take away and maybe come back in the next operations meetings with suggestions from the committee on what they would like the next step to be.
My suggestion would be to come back with a number that says 20, not 26.
Well, I would look for some suggestions from the
That's
committee.
our target.
Yeah, exactly. No, this is step one. You know, it takes several steps to get there.
And that's just me.
So I can go through this line by line, or maybe you take it away and then you have questions, and next time I go through that line by line with suggestions, how would you like to proceed?
So my question is, a lot of the referendum work is gonna also be done during the summer. That's not included on this?
Correct.
Okay, so this is just
This is-
totally outside the referendum?
100%, 8% projects.
Yeah, I'm not on this committee, but I'd say you give the our 20 million, you give the recommendation. You're the one that's in charge of the facilities.
Some of them are,
Yeah, okay.
So you asked me,
I'd rather you make a hard decision.
if you notice, I kind of like some guidance from the committee on that.
Mr. Smith?
so basically, what you're asking us is to pick out,
Choose.
pick out the one that, need that, should, I thought, wait a minute.
What I'd ask is that if y'all look at it, come back with questions on ones that you may see, that you may not understand why they're there, and ones you may think should be there. And let's talk about those, and maybe I can provide more information to you, and we can start bringing this number down.
This is for next year?
Next summer, summer 2021.
2022, it's got it on there.
FY, it's fiscal year 2022, it'd be summer work of 2021.
Okay, wait a minute, but then last time, how did we do this last time?
Same way.
Yeah.
And we started about now. I went back and
Right.
forth probably about 4 times.
Right, and so, but we did help you pick it out last time, right?
Yep.
So I would ask the board, and I would ask David, what's your difference from this time to last time? Why would you, last time, if we picked last time, why would you want him to go back and pick his up this time?
Because I'm a year smarter.
Okay.
It's his job. No, it's his job to do it.
Well, I would disagree with that. Fortunately. And I know exactly why you said that is because I'm gonna go ahead and say it publicly is because of the fact that I'm sure David knows that St. Helena is a priority because we've dealt with every school in this district besides St. Helena Elementary School and some other schools, and I think that these buildings need attention to it. So I think that the board should be involved in that, and to not say that, and to not be involved is basically saying that you don't want no one coming at you. You don't want no one saying, "Hey, you didn't get this school any attention." So I think we should. And also, especially if the board made a decision to make St. Helena one of the number one priorities.
So if he's gonna make the decision, then he's gonna make a decision with that prior knowledge. I mean, I think we're talking about relying on him for the expertise of understanding the total district's needs and shaving it where he needs to shave it, but he knows that that was a high priority thing, this Helena gym. I don't think, we have to dismiss his interchanges and where we're going. Or David is right, he doesn't make our decision and we make all the decisions. That means we get down to every project, visit every school, and then make that decision, which he's already done.
Well, I'm sure he will let us know the same way he let us know last time. What were the impact things that were going at the school?
There you go.
And so he did the same thing last time. Then what's the difference between last time and this time? If we already have a system, is my question, Mr. Kelly.
Well, yeah, the system, I think.
If it ain't broke, no fix it.
Last time is we did more work than we had to do. That's the difference.
Are we just discussing this today? We're not voting on a recommendation.
No,
Can
it's the
we
first
ask
step.
her-
This is the first step.
Okay. Can we ask a couple of questions? I know things cost a lot, but some of these numbers jump out at me, so if you can give me some rational explanation, okay? A kitchen dividing wall at Buford Middle School costs approximately half of what a house costs. $101,000 for a dividing wall?
So that's actually rearranging. To do that involves rearranging some of the kitchen equipment, and it involves electrical. It is more entailed than just building the wall itself. It does involve plumbing, electrical, rearranging of equipment is what that cost is.
When students get their devices, do they get chargers with them?
Yes.
Okay. So we got $167,000 at Buford Middle School for drop-down chargers. Is that necessary?
Well, if you'll notice, I did not put that as a suggested one to move over. I'm not suggesting that project move forward.
Okay. Bluffton High School, $30,000 for parking lot improvements. Would you,
What number? What number? 30.
number 30,
I will have to look into that one. That I don't recall. That one was requested in 2018. I will look into that one.
okay. Number 54, does it really cost $74,000 to inspect our roofs?
To bring in a consultant to look at all 32 roofs in detail, we do that about once every 5 years. I would say yes, that's not too
Okay.
far off.
Number 89, add bathrooms for $145,000. How many bathrooms are we talking about?
So it says on there 2 PK classrooms, so that's actually adding structure to the building to add a restroom to that building where they do not already
To the
have.
tune of $145,000. Again, I could almost buy a house for that.
I think, I'm a little concerned that number may be low.
Last but not least, number 99, $12,000 for kick plates for the doors at Shanklin.
That, for install, a school like Shanklin, if I had to guess, it probably has over 100, 150 doors, so.
These kick plates that would survive a moon trip or?
Just a
or
stainless
something?
steel plate on every door, on both sides of the door, throughout the building in their installation.
See? Okay, those are my questions today.
Wow, it goes right to the $7 million technology refresh.
Yeah. So William, to answer your question, or my response to your question would be what's changed? The big change is the generosity of our taxpayers. They approved a $344 million referendum over the course of, it's gonna be, the work's gonna be done over 4 years. And prior to that approval, for 11 years, we were, desperate to have maintenance done on our buildings each summer, so that 20 million figure, we were using, for maintenance to try to, keep the buildings just up and running. So it has changed a little, I think, because of that, and certain projects are, nothing in this list, Robert told us, is the referendum projects, like none of the safety or security for the schools, none of the technology, all that kind of stuff. And the other thing you've got to remember, once your committee makes, refines their choices on this list, you are going to bring it to the board, and the board as a whole, we are gonna vote. It's not, it's not gonna be ultimately Robert's decision, but, we're relying, I would say we're relying on his expertise, because, we don't know how to go evaluate the roof or the HVAC system or whatever.
If you would like me to come back with approximately $20 million suggestions with St. Helena EC Gym as a priority, I will do that.
That's what I would like. Mr. Dow? We'll come back to the next one.
That's what
If we disagree with your cuts,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and feel free to start looking over this. Add the questions you asked are good ones. That's what I feel this dialogue should be, is questions the ones that you're concerned about and or you don't understand, and we'll answer those to the point of where you understand them. And we can make a decision on how we want to spend the money.
Sounds good.
Over on 108, Ladies Out Middle School. When you take down those lockers, what do they want you to do with that?
So that's old equipment. It doesn't say lockers, and that's redoing the actual locker rooms. It's redoing the plumbing drains, or looking into. We've done that before. I had to go on in and change out the piping under the floor and put in a new floor. So that's taking old equipment out and redoing the plumbing and the floor where needed.
Okay.
Is it hot in here?
Yeah.
Oh, it's
That
on.
goes back along.
I was gonna turn there. Yeah, I was like, wait. If everybody else is comfortable, get this moving.
Okay. All right, construction update.
All right. Well, to start the construction update, you've already been introduced to Harry. Rob Corbin, as we mentioned, will be the program manager. So in the future, you may see Rob doing these instead of me. So just to preface that. This is very similar to the presentation we gave the clock. One of the things they asked for was a layout of the May River High, the 2 additions. So what you see there, the 2 additions, with the first layout being the first floor and the second layout being the second floor. What you see there is that on the second floor are labs, and then you see the general classrooms and stairs and whatnot. So that's the May River addition that's put in. If you go
Got a
to...
question, Will?
Oh,
Are you ready?
now, those are those labs? Those 4 ones are labs? The 4 wide?
Yes. Yep, those larger, with the space in between, there's kind of a walk-through space for lab storage, those are science labs. Yes, sir.
And the other 3 or 4 on this side is the classrooms.
Yeah, these would be more general classrooms. So if you see a group restroom, 2 labs, with a walk-through prep area, these are general classrooms. You have a teacher workroom and an office down here for an AT or somebody else. General classrooms, lab, and a classroom there, and stairs going down.
Okay.
And then, first floor, labs are on the second floor. Go back.
And this lab is on the first floor, the second floor.
That was the second floor. Here you have more classrooms with just the labs, 2 sets of labs in that area. And teacher workrooms, a conference room, more of a classroom, and group restroom and stairs. So that's your first floor.
Okay.
And your Kate building is here, and the main building is over there.
And those are exit doors on the bottom floor to go straight outside.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, that's a good thing. Get some of the lab blows up.
All right, if you go to the next one, maybe bring it down to the first question, are we on budget? The answer is yes. Are we on schedule? The answer is we're a little behind. The contractor feels they can make up the time, so we're not concerned as of yet, but due to the weather, we are a little behind schedule. You'll see up there what we have budgeted. The encumbered and paid is pretty much, we've either committed or paid that out to somebody. So that's the amount, a little under 12 million that we've pretty much committed to or paid out. And then the total paid to date from A River is the $838,000.
How far are we behind schedule?
They were guessing about a week and a half. But they do feel at this point they can still make it up. They're getting close to, they're prepping, as you see in the pictures, you have plumbing, they're getting ready to pour the concrete pad. That's what they're shooting for there.
Okay. I've never been on a project that they didn't feel they could catch up except for the last month.
Yeah, when you say on budget, are you referring to the cost for the work that has been done? Or are you referring to how much money is being used at this period of time?
So if you go back on,
That hasn't been done.
so as we divided up the projects, the budgeted funding for this project's the $15.691 million. So we have only committed or paid out 11.9 million, 11.961.
You said you're under budget.
So as of right now, we have not gotten anywhere near the budgeted amount. And included, what we included in that number, up here, I like to point better up here. So included in this number right now is the construction contract and some utility fees we've paid.
So that's
So-
all of the things.
Well, and that was not included in there yet are things such as furniture, utilities throughout the project, testing, architecture fees or anything like that are in there, but any kind of testing that and furniture purchases, and maybe some of the labs may have some equipment purchases. But as you see there's plenty of money right now for this project. We're very comfortable budget-wise in this project. So that-
Rob, let me ask you a question.
Yes.
So, I'm just a little concerned. So, well, what happened if we suspended school for the coronavirus? And, will they still continue to work? Or will they suspend their work?
Depends on the situation. I would say if they're forced to stop working, obviously that would have a big impact on the schedule. They most likely would try to keep working unless something was very critical. We would not stop them from working. Now, whether the state might stop them or a health department might stop them, that could be, but we would not stop them from working.
Okay.
That would be up to the contractor.
So that would have definitely be something that they would have to bite the bullet on that.
Yeah. That is a risk. At this time, we do not know. That's an unknown risk, I would say.
But who would take the blame for that risk if that risk was to come up?
Who would take the blame?
If the state didn't stop them?
Look at the contract.
Well, we are not gonna stop them for, I mean,
Okay, well, he asked my question, that's fine. That's fine, I want to, I don't need to do that.
Too touchy.
What did I do wrong?
But that makes sense.
I tried to slide it up. There we go. So now on to River Ridge. At River Ridge, there's, two wing additions. This is the 400 wing addition. This is the smaller kids, 4 classrooms with the teacher work area and restrooms in between. And then the 600 wing, the larger kid classrooms. So you see those added, and this is the new wing, which is the 800 wing.
So,
All classroom space, we got a couple teacher work areas.
Little wings.
So those are.
Oh, yeah, you talking about it. I'll sit down.
So currently at River Ridge, if you look at our campus, it looks like a big E, right? You got that big long corridor, and you have a hallway that spans off the gym and everything. And then we have the 400 hall, we have the 600 hall. So what we're doing is we're adding 4 additional classrooms on the 400 hall, we're adding 4 additional classrooms on the 600 hall. We're creating a whole new hall called the 800 hall.
so like I said, adding those 4 classes, those big, from the looks at it, from the top one, are these four classes? Because like we could have added 6 classes if the classes were a little smaller. What are these right here? What are those?
Those are the ones we added.
Right. Okay. Right.
So those are gonna be like kindergarten classes or first grade classes.
So it's a partial drawing. So this is one wing and this is another wing. If you just looked at this wing on its own, this is the end of the wing, and this wing would go all the way down to here or something like that. It's a long wing. So this is all the space we have to add between it and the sidewalk.
What are these right here?
It's the same thing. So this is a whole nother wing.
Uh-huh.
These are classrooms, and this wing goes all the way down to here. I don't know. Do you know how many classrooms are on each wing?
Not
Approximately
Because my concern is I'm just wondering.
20.
He doesn't know.
12, 14. Yeah, I don't know.
No,
All right.
voice.
Well, there are several classrooms on down that are not shown on the drawing.
Okay.
This is just a short, kind of just to show you the added space,
Okay.
not the existing space.
Okay, because I thought that we only building 4 huge classes and.
No, there's a whole long wing attached to it.
Okay.
So here's some great, now, River Ridge is really moving along nicely. All the concrete pads have been poured. We just got them in with the weather. And here, this is a great picture to look at. Can't go. All right. Well, steel is going up, so that's what we want to see. But we can get the roof up and the roof on, then we're out of the weather and we can work. That's kind of the thing everybody's shooting for both sites, is get that roof on. So this is really good to see the steel up on the 400 wing. I believe this is the 600 wing where they're starting, and that's the 800 wing. This is the new wing addition, and you see they haven't, the steel got delivered, I think I heard today or yesterday. This week steel came in there, and so it's moving right along. If you have any questions, and so budget-wise, Mr. Scrivener? There we go. So if you notice, we're a little tighter on this budget. We're still under budget. We're a little behind schedule, not say a week behind, but this is a good sign right here. If we get good dry weather, they should be able to catch up here in pretty good shape. You can see we budgeted $9.9 million. We've encumbered or paid out $9 million, and billed to date just under $1 million. So it's moving right along, and very happy to see the steel going up.
For any program managers in the room, they can always anticipate, I'll ask those 2 questions.
Yes, sir.
On budget, on schedule, you know that.
So I'll go on, this is kind of a quick schedule for the project, and then summer work. DD set to come in, actually Monday, we're supposed to get them in, actually we haven't gotten them in yet, but we're getting them in Friday and Monday. Friday the 13th?
Yeah, Friday,
Okay,
yeah, between
okay.
Friday and Monday.
Friday and Monday, the architectural sets are supposed to start coming in. So we'll start our first pricing set with the contractor to see where we're going on summer work. We're excited. It'll also then get submitted to OSF. So as those plans start coming in, this is where things really start kicking off. And then the CD set is scheduled for April 10th. So everything's working forward. Just note, we did have our first job fair with the Black Chamber on 3/4. Our second job fair, we will have plan sets at this next one. It's 3/19 here in this building from 5 to 7. So if you know any interested contractors or anyone that may be interested in working construction this summer, have them stop by our job, subcontractor job fair here in 3/19 from 5 to 7.
Thank you. All right, now we get to the fun part of the agenda, the River Ridge mascot.
All right, so it was a few months back, and that was the kind of the start of a process where when I took on the job and I was talking with students and staff, a need came up for the idea that at our school we have this really great crest, but although we are the River Ridge Raiders, we don't really have a mascot, right? We have a crest, but no mascot. So that started the process and the journey, and we had a logo, and I took your feedback and your advice. And I met with our graphic design guy, Stan Vitus at Bluffton High School. We worked a couple versions, and he has produced this Raider for us. I presented that to my school improvement council and to my actual student council at school, and the kids in this SIC all loved it, thought it was great. And so here it is before you today. So this is a possibility of what the River Ridge Academy Raider could look like. You can see there's the incorporation of the crest into the mascot there, and I don't know. I think you did a good job.
Now this, we do have to make a recommendation on. We do have to make a recommendation on this because the board has to approve it.
Who are we recommending it to? The
So
full
the
board?
board, yeah, the
Move
board
that
has
we
to.
recommend to the full board the adoption of the River Ridge mascot as presented to the principal.
I second that.
Okay. All in favor? 3-0. So we will recommend.
Good job. I think it's awesome. Good
Thank
work.
you.
And thanks for going back and.
No, thank you for your advice.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yep, it still looks aggressive, but it's not quite as deadly.
No sword. Remember, you
No
need one.
sword, I remember the
But it's-
discussion
I
very
like
well.
it.
No weapons.
All right, future topics.
We got, my motion, is that gonna be after future topics there? The motion we added to the agenda?
To have them speak.
Huh?
To have them speak? I thought your motion was to have that added to the agenda, and we did that. I thought your motion was to have that added to the agenda, and we did that first.
No, my
Oh,
motion
another
was just
motion?
to discuss it. And I was gonna move to have them come to the full board based on the fact that the clock had them come, and the clock is not accountable to the community for them. The clock is the superintendent's committee, and the clock is not accountable to the community for the money. But if the clock had enough questions to warrant having those people come in, then I think it's reasonable to assume that members of the board might have questions about the stories that were published, that's all. So I was just gonna make a motion that we recommend to the full board that an agenda item be placed in the future for the have Gary come in and address it to the full board the way that they addressed it to the clock.
Second it. So, did you make a motion? I was gonna say, you could just put them up on your report and let them, on your report, let them come up and, read what he just read and be done with it.
Could do that. But I want to say that the committee recommended it.
Oh, okay.
I don't want to be accused of doing it on my own.
Does that work? Does that work? I was gonna say, I was recommending that he go ahead and when he's doing his committee report, under his committee report, he can allow them to come and speak to the board at that time.
Right, right, I don't see any value in having to come in here.
Right.
So it's just like the operations committee to communicate to the board that we think it's important enough to have them come and talk to the board. That's all.
All right, we have a problem with that, right? Right, okay, so.
Fair. All right, three out. You want to do that, right?
We'll be glad to do that, sir.
The answer to a different question, but I'll take it. All right. I don't think we really need a recap on this one.
Is that the only future topic? I mean, so we don't have any future topics?
Well, we're revisiting the, right, revisiting the,
Facilities.
Well, the 8% is gonna come back.
Yeah, the 2022, yeah, exactly.
Well, yes, definitely.
That's gonna come.
We'll have construction update, summer 2021,
And also-
8% project list.
And also, can we get an update on, can we get an update on all subcontract, like as in custodians and all those? Can we get an update on all things that we have subcontract out from GC and all that, just so we can understand what we have going on as a district? Do you understand what I'm saying?
No, I don't.
As in, what all do we subtract out to the district?
Well, there's a long list. You know, I mean, you mentioned ABM does maintenance and custodial. Sodexo, in my world, that's my world.
Right.
And then you have Sodexo does food service. And then you may have a substitute teacher firm. There's numerous subcontracts throughout the district. And I think that's a report that finance makes. I know we do the minority and women-owned business report on subcontract work. I have not done previously a report like that. That's typically something more out of finance.
Well,
Because they track.
would you be willing to, next meeting, just let us know, that the two, you said that, because I know, wait a minute, did we already renew the contract for, ABM?
So ABM maintenance, the maintenance contract is out for bid right now.
Right.
So ABM is our current contractor, but we are out for bid, so that could change, because their contract ends June 31st.
Okay,
So
well,
that could change July 1.
Well, I think it'd be a learning curve, so could you bring back to us basically an outline of their contract and the cost of it moving forward, so that we can be educated, so that even when we get the new contract, that we're just not voting on it, and we understand the processing it. As well as.
Can I maybe suggest a different avenue? I could come talk about the RFQ and that process that we're going out right now, what's part of the selection process for the contractor. You know, like you said, we're gonna have a new contract, so I don't know necessarily what the value of the old contract is. It comes to an end.
Because you learn from your mistakes, that's why. I mean, that's just my opinion, you know, as in, you learn what you had them for, what's the cost of it, and versus someone else bidding and what they're offering, it's almost like.
I have to say, one of my hesitations is a detailed conversation about a contract that's currently out for bid. So I'm a little concerned about the timing of that, I have to say.
I got you. I respect that. I respect your opinion on that. You're absolutely correct on that. Well, how about the process of putting out for bid then?
I would have no problem having that conversation.
And then the other one is
So
what?
you kind of want an update of the maintenance RFQ that's currently out. Is what I put down as a line item. We can give an update of the maintenance RFQ. The other one's custodial, and that one I believe we're in year 2 of a 5-year contract.
And I would possibly like to see what's the work of that as well.
What specifically are you asking for? I mean, what part of the
The
contract?
RFQ. What
What they're required to do?
What they're required to do.
what their scope of work is.
Yes, sir, whatever it is, there you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just gonna suggest as a future agenda, not a topic, but if we can devote as much time in future agendas to the project list and to construction, and leave some wiggle room for time-sensitive subjects, but if we can devote most of our agenda time to that, I think that'll be helpful, because if we don't meet again till April, we'll be well into the budget by then.
The only topic, other future topic I would have, I'd like to know what the yield is on the black and minority workshops. that you
Yes,
have.
one of the things we have talked about, well, we won't know
You
that
don't have to
yet.
tell me now, I just.
We are gonna be tracking that, though.
Right, you track it and just come back and tell us. No.
What is the status of our start time with this committee? The surveys and
Surveys are done.
you got a read on the surveys or anything? Or you got-
Yeah. We sent it out
It's
there.
up there, it's up there by the whole board.
Is there a recommendation too?
What was supposed to happen? What was supposed to happen was that we said at the board meeting, everyone thought that it would be in their best interest to go out and hold their own town hall meetings and see how their people felt about the start times, and that they would coordinate that with Robin. Is my
You all are
understanding of it.
supposed to do it as clusters, not individuals, so
Right.
you all are supposed to do it as clusters and get together as clusters and give me dates.
Right. Yeah, that's my understanding of it.
And the survey was sent out to board members?
Sent out to all the board members. It was
And I
sent-
didn't get a copy.
It was sent to the teacher forum.
Okay,
You didn't?
no, you probably did it for the OER.
I'll send it to you. Yeah, Jim sent it there.
Are we coordinating the
Town halls.
town hall, or you guys coordinate?
No, the board vote, the board
We
voted.
voted on that?
I don't know if they voted on it or not, but they agreed on it.
Okay, well, right.
Okay.
Okay, my bad.
So we're gonna gauge our cluster areas, find out whether the survey results is what they want.
Right, yes, sir. That's my
That's
understanding.
not gonna be phased into the survey results. I mean, I thought that was the discussion when I heard.
Yeah, they
the
are supposed to,
discussion.
right, they are supposed to be fair.
That's another component to the surveys.
And
So,
Right, and that's my thinking. It's another channel
yes,
originally for folks who probably
Who
didn't
didn't
fill out
do
the
it.
survey.
Right.
But then you gotta be careful because you have to ask every speaker, did you fill out the
yeah,
survey?
got two, double dipped.
Yeah, so that's kind of tricky. Yes, ma'am.
Molly and I, we were going to, once we got all the committee meetings and stuff established, I was going to contact board members by cluster to find out, these are the dates that are available, to find out by cluster if board members were available. So we're going to try to coordinate it that way, to see if that would work.
Yeah, in my committee report, I'm gonna explain to the board, you got the survey results, look at them this time and see if you can draw some conclusion from them. I did, there's something that jumps out at me. Because we do, I'm glad you said something, because we told folks we were gonna do something. And we started it, and
That's-
then we
yeah, that's
gotta
out there.
do it, and we gotta do it fairly
Start time.
soon. If
Yeah.
we're gonna affect next year, we've gotta do it.
Right.
We've gotta do something. At least tell them we heard them.
Yes,
Right.
even if they're not gonna do what they want.
Adjourn. Right?
Second.
All right, that's unanimous.